I'm deep underground in Danarogov. This place is a maze of underground tunnels, some 16-kilometre cave system. We are blessed in Wales with so many incredible wonders right beneath our feet, but people rarely, if ever, get to come and see them. That's where I'm exploring this episode.
My name is Will Millard, and I'm a writer and adventurer. Although I've explored some of the world's most inaccessible corners, I'm often surprised about the incredible wonders right here on my doorstep in Wales.
Just look at the immense scale of that.
In this series, I'll be travelling the length and breadth of this country to discover some of these hidden secrets. Lost worlds beneath our feet. Industries that once powered the nation. And structures that will take your breath away. It's going to be exhilarating.
There we go! Woohoo!
And dangerous.
This is as tight as it gets now.
I thought I knew this country, but I was wrong. This is Wales as you've never seen it before. Wales is full of hidden, forgotten and almost inaccessible places with remarkable stories to tell. And in this series, I'll be going to some extraordinary lengths to seek them out. In this first episode, I'm going to be exploring what lies beneath our feet. Wales is home to many spectacular caves, tunnels and caverns. But some of the best can only be seen by daring to venture inside the valleys, cliffs and mountains of this diverse landscape. My journey begins here on Gower Peninsula. It's famous for its beautiful beaches, but there are also hundreds of caves dotted all along its coastline. It's here that you'll find Wales's strangest cave. Its history is shrouded in mystery. Some believe it's linked to smuggling. So I've come to Portinen Beach to meet Helen Nicholas, who knows all about Gower folklore. The Gower, it's a funny old place, isn't it? It's pretty synonymous with smuggling.
If you think that Swansea was a really busy fishing port, then it would be ideal to kind of stop off on your way in one of Gower's craggy coves.
Oh, this is it, isn't it?
Deposit your contraband.
You can't see, can you? It's all like little warrens and little hidden coves.
Lots of secret places that you could stop, hide your goods, and usually you'd have your top dog, if you like. The whole community would be involved.
So everyone was on the take, were they? They pulled the whole
Everyone.
community into it.
They were like Robin Hood characters, and they shared those spoils. Even the vicar was involved.
Even the vicar.
There's tales of hiding contraband in the church.
Love it.
Yeah.
The smuggling kingpin here was John Lucas, now a Gower legend. The story goes that this salt house was his headquarters.
He was a pirate. He travelled the seas doing bold and not altogether good deeds.
I've heard this man, John Lucas, was exceptionally violent and exceptionally good looking.
Oh, he was. He sounds fantastic, yes. He's our own pole duck, and we would have been on his side. He was comely of the eye, he was bold, he was violent, and he was ungovernable. Fantastic character.
Local records talk of tunnels underneath the salt house and passageways that led inland from Portinen's beach. There's no trace of them today, but Helen's taking me to John Lucas's main hiding place, just up the coast.
One of Gower's real gems is Culver Hole, and it's hidden in the cliff face just around the corner from here.
Once you're on top of these cliffs here, I can see what you're talking about. You know, if you saw a smuggling ship coming into a cove like this, yeah, you might know they've gone into this cove, but they could conceivably go anywhere into any of these caves.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? There's loads of these inlets, and if you've got that knowledge, then you can really exploit the danger and the secret locations to your advantage. You can smuggle that stuff away.
Culver Hole is one of those secret locations, a very tall and narrow cave that's been walled up. No one's quite sure when, but the story goes that John Lucas used the cave to stash his smuggled goods in the 1700s. The old entrance is now buried under rocks, so the only way in today is to abseil down the 150-foot cliff face. This is the nice lip he was talking about. Wow! That's straight down. This is not for people who have problems with heights. You can see Culver Hole though for the first time. Goodness me, that is a drop. Okay, I'm about to remove my feet from underneath the lip and I'm going to be suspended in free air. There we go, woo! Goodness me. Wow, there it is. That is quite a sight. I've always wanted to see this place. I've seen pictures of it in books. But you've just got this stone filling to this cave entrance. Little windows. There it is, Culver Hole. Here we go. Almost down.
Wow, this is so cool.
This is amazing. There's a pigeon. Right past my face. Well then, we're in it.
We did it.
We did it.
It's quite castle-like, don't you think?
It is. It definitely feels like a fortress.
It does.
And in terms of secret spaces, I mean, just look up there. It's amazing.
Wonderful.
Culver Hole is most associated with being a dovecot, a structure that was used to house birds which were bred for their meat and eggs. But it seems a really odd choice of location, considering it's so hard to get to.
But why here, you know?
Yeah. The logistics alone makes you think, what else?
It does. There's a story that it was part of Prince Island's castle, and so that you would imagine that the castle itself would be somewhere than cliff top. It has got that castle-y feel to it. You know, you've got the mortar, you've got the shapes of the windows. There's some thought put into how it looks and appears. And there's, you know, it's possible that it had floors. Why not? You know, maybe the staircase led up to some promontory castle, windswept and romantic. One of the Welsh princes.
It does lend itself to this really interesting idea that, as you say, there might have been Einan's castle up there, or it might have just been a smokescreen for some massive smuggling enterprise where bowls of brandy and cloth and goodness knows what else is being pushed back into these tunnels that lead into the cliff face. Dovecot, castle, smuggling enterprise.
All three.
All three. Why not? As well as curiosities like Culver Hole, Gower's Caves have long been a rich source of astonishing archaeological discovery. Bone caves found on this coastline in the Victorian era have been of global scientific importance. Haviland Cave contained the remains of a 33,000-year-old man. But it's been a while since anything significant has been found. Until now. University researcher John Cooper has discovered a new cave that also contains ancient bones. He's taking me inside, but we've got to keep its location secret to protect the site.
It's about 60 feet now, but it's still going down. There's a big draft coming up through the floor. If we go much further, you'll be wearing bathers.
Right, let's get stuck in. With just a handful of volunteers, John's hauled up 40 tons of rock and mud by hand. He's installed ladders and platforms 60 feet down into this cave.
When you reach it,
It was formed from calcium carbonate flowstone, and scientific testing tells us when this happened.
This is a sample of stalactite that we cut and dated, and this particular sequence here started at 128,000 years ago and finished at 125,000 years ago. So these rings that you can see represent 3,000 years of Gower's history.
That's amazing. I mean, it's such a stretch of history, and that is so beautiful as well.
It is, really, yeah.
John takes me deeper into the cave to meet Professor Danielle Shreve, who's helping him excavate something quite remarkable.
Everything that we're finding at the moment are remains of individual animals, things like dogs, but also foxes as well. Over here we've got some sheep, and close to my feet we've got remains of horse.
How on earth has a horse got stuck down here?
It's a good question, but caves are amazing places in terms of acting as huge dustbins in the landscape. So a lot of the time you get animals that fall in from the top. You also get, of course, predators that are coming in and using the cave, and sometimes they'll bring in remains of prey as well. So it's often a big puzzle because you're trying to figure out how they actually got into the cave.
What do you hope to find, Danielle?
So what I'm really hoping to find is probably right underneath this massive scree that you're sitting on. So remains of Ice Age mammals, animals that were around on the Gower maybe 50,000 years ago when sea level was much lower. We were in the middle part of the last Ice Age.
The bones they've excavated so far have been dated at several thousand years old. They've recovered nearly 100 different animal remains, including 50 dogs, of which this skull is one. Oh, wow, look.
Very nice.
No one's ever touched them, and they are in great condition.
Probably one of the oldest individuals that we've got.
And we know that these guys were, of course, unfortunate and were trapped down here.
Yes, we can see that very clearly from the desperate scratch marks that are present on the cave wall.
Whereabouts are they?
You can see these deep incisions. It's almost certainly these were last desperate attempts to get out. It's pretty bleak.
It is a bit, isn't it? Danielle hopes to eventually uncover Ice Age animal bones, but John's dream is to find evidence of ancient man. He's found some carved stone objects that may be 6,000-year-old Neolithic discs, but he's hoping to find something even more significant.
One of the reasons that I'm digging here is I believe that there would have been some form of human presence in the cave, and I'm sure that we're going to find other things as we dig further down.
John's going to continue excavating until he finds concrete proof that, as well as the animals, humans were down here thousands of years ago.
There's another chamber running through there full of bones.
Yeah. I really hope his determination pays off. By their very nature, caves are secret places that hide their histories. And that's why humans have used them for thousands of years for all sorts of clandestine activity. I'm driving to Treville, the highest village in Wales, to find a cave that was used for that very purpose. I've just come off the Heads of the Valleys road, and the cave that I'm heading to now is a real one-off. The story that this place has is one of a violent rebellion that would change the future of democracy in Britain. The cave is located an hour's walk away, across this remote mountainside. Accompanying me is Dr. Ellen Jones, one of Wales's most eminent historians.
It is farmland on my left, and it's the valleys and the industrial areas down to the right. But this area has been heavily exploited and industrialised because the limestone they're mining here was essential for the iron industry.
And it's been an area that's been steeped in a history of rebel activity.
Yes, for the first decades of the 19th century, there were rebellions and revolts against working conditions, and this area was notorious for being lawless. There's one report in 1834 that says there is no law between Dowlas and Abergavenny, And we are just here in the middle of that.
Right in the heart.
Yep.
The rebellions were united by a working-class movement known as Chartism. Back in the early 1800s, Britain was run by the rich and privileged, and only 1 person in 20 was qualified to vote. The Chartists wanted to change the whole system.
So they were aiming to reform society through Parliament. It was a very noble ambition. And the fact that the petition that they presented to Parliament was rejected out of hand and with a great deal of mockery led to them feeling, well, we have no other recourse now. You try peaceful protest, and if that doesn't work, and if you're not listened to, what do? You resort to violence.
The bulk of the support for the Chartists came from the ironworkers and colliers of South Wales. In 1839, the Chartists were planning a show of force against the establishment. And this cave was where it all started.
Oh, Ellen, this is where you've been leading me to.
Yep, you only see it when you're on it.
It's just like a big black eye opening up in the ground.
I know.
Here we go. The Chartist Cave.
Yep.
God, it's a nice sanctuary on a bad day.
Oh, why? All caves, I think, have got histories because they're hidden places and they're secret places, and dreadful things happen there. I think this is a cave with an example of hopes and dreams in it as well as fear and desperation.
Tell me the story of this cave.
It is where the Chartists stored their arms in advance of their attack on Newport. There had been huge meetings on the mountains around here, thousands of people coming together in Helgerig and in Antiglo, and they decided that they would march on Newport. And they came to this cave to hide their arms and to prepare for an attack on the forces of law and order, which were keeping them subjugated to their masters. It was possibly the beginning of a revolution in this country.
In spite of their strength in numbers and the weapons that they had when they marched on Newport, it was a disaster, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. They were desperate men, and they were met by a volley of fire.
The Newport authorities were ready for them, and an intense gun battle ensued. 22 marchers were shot dead and 50 wounded. The leaders were caught and sentenced to death. But while the uprising might have been seen as a failure at the time, it eventually kick-started democracy for the British working classes.
Was it worth it?
Oh, of course it was worth it. I think it was the beginning of a movement towards social and political reform that has continued to work until our own day. And I think it's a great shame that we don't honour the Chartists by using our vote. That's what they fought and died for. That's what they planned for in this cave. And if we don't use our vote, we are disrespecting the Chartists.
I want to see for myself how far back the cave goes and where the weapons were thought to have been stashed.
Oh, wow. It's quite a passageway down here. Oh, yeah. Quite surprised at the scale of this cave, actually. This tunnel looks like it goes quite a long way back. We have got so much to be grateful for places like this. It's an amazing place for human stories. If only these walls could talk, eh?
"17 miles west is the small hamlet of Glyntower. It's right in the Brecon Beacons National Park, which boasts some of the finest scenery Wales has to offer. Underneath the rolling hills and mountainsides are some of the most important cave systems in Europe. Practically all of these cave networks are for experienced cavers only, but you can get a taste of what they're like at the world-famous National Show Caves, Danarogov. But the tourist attraction is only a fraction of what's down here. I've come to meet local caver Martin Farr, who's taking me way beyond the areas open to the public.
Visitors must not cross this fence.
You yourself have got a real personal connection here. I mean, you've been all over this place, haven't you, Martin?
So I've actually found a couple of miles of this cave, and a large part of that has been underwater and in dry cave beyond the cave diving sites. So very, very remote locations.
How big is it then?
Well, it's about 16 kilometres, in excess of 10 miles of cave known at the present time.
We're going to be underground for the whole day, so Martin's keen to get going. First up, a freezing cold river cave.
Do not step out to your right at all.
Okay, mate. Here we go. It's cold. Yeah, all good, mate, all good. You can hear this formidable rumble up ahead.
I think Martin's taking me up that.
Past the waterfall, you can see how this underground river has carved a tunnel from sheer rock over millions of years. It takes over an hour to pick our way through, and then things start to get a bit tighter.
Oh, you were born to do this, Will.
Mate, it's a method I call the maggot.
After 2 hours, we've made it to the first main chamber. It's remarkable to think that the two farmers who discovered this cave back in 1912 were equipped only with candles. That is spectacular, Martin.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful.
Deposits of calcite, stalactites that have merged with stalagmites into columns. This is always beautiful for any caver. You know, you put up with the hardships, the crawls, the cold, wet water. But when you reach places like this, it's uplifting, magnificent.
In the time we have today, Martin's only able to show me a fraction of what's down here. But over the years, he's gone to great effort to discover huge parts of this cave system, some of which was done through cave diving. Martin's now one of the UK's leading cave divers, but back when he first explored here in the 1970s, the sport was in its infancy and exceptionally dangerous.
On my 6th cave dive, I came into Danarogov. I was quite a long way in, underwater, with one cylinder, one regulator, and the regulator failed. It completely failed, leaving me with no air in my lungs. It just still makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck even today.
I mean, it's the worst case scenario as a diver, but as a cave diver, when you're obviously in an overhead environment and you can't just escape to the fresh air, what do you do?
Well, I was breathing water for 2 minutes, I would say.
2 minutes.
And if it hadn't been for another diver coming in to show me the way out, I would have definitely died that day.
We continue our journey, passing more chambers that glisten with stalactites known as straws. The passageways they hang from were formed an incredible 350 million years ago. Our next major obstacle wasn't discovered until the 1960s. The cavers who found it called it the Endless Crawl.
There's a rope for holding on. Yeah. Got it, yeah.
That is tiny. Oh, it's full of water as well.
It's going to get tighter than that. Are we going for it?
Yeah, age before beauty.
Oh.
Couldn't get the handle.
It's 6.5 dozen near there. There it is.
This is as tight as it gets now.
Yeah.
I remember when I first got into this, and I sat and was having a chat with the safety caver, and he told me about being in the tunnel. It was so tight you couldn't move any part of your body. Well, I'm in that tunnel now.
After almost an hour of pushing and squeezing, the endless crawl finally comes to an end. By the time we pass a crystal pool and through some more passages to reach our end goal, we've been underground for 6 hours. But the reward is worth it. One of the finest decorated cave chambers in the whole of the UK.
Cloud Chamber.
Wow, look at that. It is just a waterfall, a curtain of crystals cascading down from the roof of the cavern.
Just imagine what those first explorers must have thought. All back at Easter 1966. Just breathtaking.
Oh, mate, I can't imagine. You know, they would have been cold, they would have been wet, they would have been hungry, they probably would have been quite scared in that long, tight crawl. But then you see something like this, they must have been feeling like they were touching heaven. I mean, this is the holy grail of cave exploration, isn't it?
Yeah, this is as good as it gets, exploratory-wise, in South Wales.
Well, you know what? The crew have brought a load of lights down here, heaved them all the way to this very spot, which means that we're able now to light this up and make it look even more spectacular. Let's get stuck in, I can't wait, mate.
Absolutely, I'd love to see it.
Let's put some light on it. I'm not a religious man, but I've heard people talk of thin places, which is where the gap between the human world and the spiritual world narrows, and when you look at a place like this, you can't help but be moved in an almost spiritual way. It is sensational, isn't it, Martin?
It's reverential. It is staggeringly beautiful.
The thing is, as well, there's still so much more to find.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So Danarogov is over 16 kilometres long now, and I wouldn't be surprised in the fullness of time if it's 3 times longer. And how many more places just like this could there be under this mountain?
It's so inspiring to come down here and to even imagine that there are other things like this just sitting under the ground in Wales waiting to be discovered by people. It's really, really special. I can see why you do it. I can see why you take the risks.
Next time, I'll be continuing to look into hidden Welsh wonders as I explore Wales's forgotten copper story.
Right, look at this.
I'll be starting where it all began, on the alien landscape of Anglesea's Paris Mountain.
Oh, yeah, that is cold.
I'll be marvelling at what was once the world's biggest copper town.
Copperopolis really was at the centre of a global industry.
And I'll be joining Martin on a cave dive to discover an abandoned mine from the 1700s.